Hello and welcome to a new video. In this video, I wanted to show you some of the artworks that I created with the watercolor brushes, so you can get inspired what you can create with watercolor brushes in Procreate. And I also made a short form video recording parts and basically bits and pieces of this coloring process, where you can see how I applied some of the lines and colored on top of each other when I was painting the flowers. And in this one, I wanted to explore some of the abstract shapes as well, which you can see here, for example, that I used more geometric shapes also for these flowers, and overall the flowers are more abstract. And then I used variety of textured brushes. So for example, you can see it here on this leaf, I have more like rough edge, and then on these leaves I created kind of like a layering style of this more water edge brush. And I try to combine different textures, so there is this variety of shapes and kind of transitions. So also here we have more geometric shapes, and then the character is a little bit more defined. All right, let's go to the next one. And here you can see the comparison of the line art concept, which was created for coffee art prompt, if I remember correctly. So there was like an idea of relaxation with coffee in the garden. And already at this stage, I was thinking that it would be nice to have like one overall color that I wanted to use for this illustration. And it was mostly these orangey warm tones, because I wanted to have that feeling of warmth and nice kind of relaxing moment in the garden. And then in this version, I actually extended the image by painting more abstract flowers here in the background. So you can see that the whole illustration is kind of more space, because I wanted to use this illustration as a banner for my art club, kind of like landing page. And I needed a different resolution, but I didn't have the ratio which fit well for this layout. So that's why I painted more of these abstract shapes here in the background of the illustration. And I'll just pop in the image of the banner here on the side, so you can see how I decided to apply this illustration for the banner. And I also had a different version of the idea for the banner, but then I decided to go for just the illustration. And here was the first idea, where I just put the text over the illustration. But as you see on the banner, I decided to put some stroke over the text, because I think that fits nicer for the banner. But overall, I'm quite happy how this illustration turned out, because the colors are so nice and warm. And I really like the idea of the chilling with tea or coffee in the garden. And here is another illustration where I was using the watercolor brushes, and you can see that I also played with more abstract shapes for the background, also for this illustration. And you can see that I created these random shapes, but overall I was trying to create kind of illusion of trees and lights in the background. And then I added the raindrops on top layer. So I separated the overall background, then the characters and the rain, because I wanted to animate the illustration. So here is already the flattened illustration, and I separated the rain on a new layer. And I also had these bigger raindrops, which I thought I will animate. But let me show you how the animation looks like if you haven't seen it yet. So here is the animation in Procreate Dreams. So let me show you. So here is the final animation. And I also added some sound, as you can hear. And then I animated these raindrops jumping off the surface, and it was quite interesting animation to do. And then I also animated the little tails on the dogs and the hair of the character. All right, so let me stop this and let's go back to Procreate. And here you can see the comparison of the sketch and the kind of final illustration in my kind of sketchbook layout. So the idea was very rough. So the sketch was mostly just idea for the trees, the street, and the characters. All right. And here is another illustration where I was using the watercolor brushes, and this one was quite fun to do as well because I wanted to use bright colors in the underwater scene, and I also made a tutorial about how to create this type of underwater scene in Procreate using the watercolor brushes, and you can find the process of this illustration in my art club, and I will put the link also in the description for this tutorial if you want to check it out. All right, and here is another illustration where I was using the watercolor brushes, and for this one I was trying to use the brushes which will depict the feathers the best, and then I use different brushes for the details of the parrot, like the eyes and these other outlining details. And then I also used the paper texture for the background, so you can see it looks a little bit different with the paper texture and without it. So I like using my sketchbook paper textures to create that feel of the traditional media. And I also made a tutorial on combining these different brushes when painting parrots, and I also shared the reference, so tips on drawing parrots from references, as well as how to apply these watercolor brushes, because these parrots were inspired by my visit in the animal sanctuary. So I had a bunch of photos where I was looking at these amazing looking birds. So it was quite inspirational to see them in the real life. So I am super happy that I got to experience that, and I wanted to share it with others in form of the photo references and this illustration, because I think it's very nice to appreciate various animal species which live in the nature. And here is another illustration where I use the watercolor brushes, and you can see that in this one the background is quite simple, and I also played with more abstract shapes for the trees, but I created also the highlights and shadows on the trees. And I also made a reel where you can see parts of this process and some of the brushes that I used for this illustration. And this illustration had this wintry feel where I wanted to add these cute corgis wearing scarves, because I also saw a nice corgi in a park and they always look so fluffy and cute. So in the short form video, you can see the process of this illustration and some of the brushes that I used here. And here you can see the comparison of the sketches and two different composition ideas for the colored version illustration. So you can see in this version the corgis are one looking at the other and one on the left is looking at the bird. And then in this version the corgis are looking at each other. And I asked you guys which one is your favorite, and most of you voted for this version, so that's why the colored version is that one. And then we have this illustration, which I also shared in the short form video, so you can see my process of sampling the colors for this overall scene, because I wanted to have some bright colors for the character and the flowers, and then some green color tones for the background. So in the short form video, you can see part of the process of coloring this nice scene in the garden, because I love the idea of having nice greenhouse full of flowers where you can just maybe chill and sit. So that would be something which I would love to have in the future. And maybe you have some pets there with you, like a cat or a dog, and of course you need to have plants which are safe for the cats, because sometimes they like to chew on them. So either you train them or you work with different types of plants. And I also like the idea of more cozy outfit. So even though it's a skirt and the character is dressed a little bit nicer than just sweatpants, the shirt is more loose, and also the skirt is more like comfy outfit, so you can still look kind of nice while working in a kind of garden setting. So I also like the outfit for this character, or the idea of this outfit. And also the idea of a nice sunny day is also implemented here, so you can see the light through the windows, and then there is also light here on the floor, so you can imagine kind of this sunshine streaming through the windows and the plant to the greenhouse. Yeah, I really like the idea of sitting in the greenhouse, as I said. So this illustration idea is one of my favorites. So let me know in the comments if sitting in the greenhouse and maybe reading a book or taking care of the plants would be something which appeals to you as well. So anyway, this one was interesting to make, but it was also quite time consuming because there is a lot of details and the full scene is quite complex with amount of flowers. So, and here you can see the comparison of the layout sketch and the colored version. Then this one you might have already seen, because I shared the time-lapse process of this watercolor illustration, and this one was created for the prompt winter flowers, and I focused on silhouettes for the trees, and then I added the character and other details like the flowers. And here you can see the concept versus the colored version. And here in the concept sketch, you can see that I focus mostly on the trees and then kind of the landscape with the character. And here in this one, you can see variety of sea life animals like the turtle or a ray. Then I also have a seahorse, little cute fish, and then I also painted some colorful sea crabs, which were also quite fun to make. And then I added the paper texture in the background. And this one was created for the Sea Life Animals drawing challenge, which I made for the art club. And I recorded the whole process of sketching and coloring of this illustration. And I also made a short form video as well, so you can see part of the process. But in the art club challenge video, I'm also sharing the tips and kind of like a hiccups which didn't work during this process. So I wanted to share also what was my challenge when I created this, and also share tips on creating these type of animals and watercolor illustration of animals living in the ocean. Here you can see some of the sketches that I made for these animals, and I made them more defined that sometimes I would do for a concept idea, but in this case I wanted to have the sketches a little bit more defined. And then I created different colored version of this illustration, which I will pop some images here also on the side, because it was interesting to see how this illustration look with different colored background. And I wanted to create also new pattern design from these illustrations. And I ask you guys as well to vote on the colored background, and a lot of you also voted for this dark blue background. And then I also created different versions, which I will make as a final pattern designs. And I think this is the good place to end this video, so it's not extremely long. And I hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching, and talk to you in the next one. Bye!